Welcome to the Circle Investor Podcast. If this is your first time listening to the show, we talk about all things Central Indiana real estate, business, and beyond. If it's not your first time listening to the show, then welcome back. On today's episode, we talk about
if you're using the property as an ATM, those $5,000 water bills are going to eat 8 months of your profit for the whole year.
The only way you make money in real estate is if you buy it the right way.
Welcome to another episode of the Circle Investor Podcast. We've got a great guest with us today. We have David Brinkworth with us today. Thank you for coming on the podcast.
Yeah, thanks for
Welcome.
having me.
Yeah, thanks for being here.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, David has actually been he's a longtime friend. Has been a client with Intrigue for about 7 years now.
Yep.
We were just talking about, and you've been the president of Maxwell Group since 2000.
Yep.
IU grad. We really appreciate you coming in.
No, thank you. Appreciate it. Appreciate you having me.
Yeah, thanks for being here. It's nice to meet you.
Good to meet you.
We can talk about our IU overlap, but we've already done that off
exactly.
mic. So I think we just jump
You're
right
a lot younger than I am, but that's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, compare how much the school has changed.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, well, so I did forget to mention that I went to IU Indy, not IU Bloomington.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so
Great.
Spent all my time at IUPUI at the time.
Which I did, which is where I finished.
Right, okay.
So, which I think is the greatest school ever. So.
Yeah, love it.
Yeah.
Just went to my first Indy 11 game, too, this past summer, so that's exciting.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, thanks for being here, man.
Yeah.
Let's jump in.
Okay.
I don't know how long it's been since we got together last.
It's been a couple, 3-4 years. I mean, it could be 3-4 years from now.
Yeah, you're busy. I'm busy. But we do so much work together. I mean, you were when I was starting Intrigue back in 2018. You were definitely one of my first 5 clients that I worked with, and it's been, such a gift for me to get to play a small role in what you've been accomplishing in real estate over the years, and what getting to have a front row seat to you growing a portfolio of rental properties in Indianapolis. So, and I think that your story is something that the listeners of this podcast could really learn a lot from. Sure. So I definitely want to jump in.
Well, you've been such a huge help. I mean, you and your entire group. I mean, I wouldn't be in the business if it weren't for you guys, because I don't want to do all the things that property owners do.
Yeah, I
don't want to manage that process.
And I will say you've always said that, and I appreciate you for it. But I'll say, compared to a lot of the clients we work with, you do get your hands dirty.
No, I think that's it, and that's problematic. And your boy Daniel gets very upset for me, because I get way more involved than I probably should be, and it upsets my son, who is one of my partners. I still, even up to most of this year, I still cut the grass because I get out of the house. It gives me something to do, and I meet all the neighbors and stuff. So I mean, pros and cons. I mean, Daniel always gives me grief, because when I'm there, somebody will come out and say, "Hey, I got a broken this," and or try and get me for something else. So I'm trying to learn, but it's the nature of who I am. I mean, it's just it's just part of it, and
I get it.
Drives my son. When I go cut grass, and he goes, "Dad, they'll cut their grass." I'm like, "No, they probably won't." I mean, it's eventually they might, but I have a certain look and feel about how I want my properties to look. Even I don't care where they are, and so I mulch them, I do this and do that, but it gives me something else to do. So
I mean, I can appreciate it. I think being somebody that kind of operates at a level like you do. Sure. I mean, sometimes I think doing those tasks can be like, hey, it's therapy. It gives me something to go do.
But I also hate that, I sold a property, you sold it for me, but over on 37th and Kenwood. Mm-hmm. And I used to mow the yard there every week. And it was spotless. I mean, I mulched it, I did everything. And I sold it, and I don't know if one of your investors bought it. And I drive by all my old stuff every once in a while just to see. And I laughed. I mean, I took a picture of him and called Daniel. I'm like, the grass is like 4 feet tall, And he's like, yeah, well, I'm like it just changed the whole.
Yeah, changes the vibe.
It does. And I mean, it doesn't, I don't know. There's just something about, I try to take pride in everything I do, not in just the real estate company. It's just kind of how I was raised and who I am, right? So me cutting the grass, every week. And I left town this past summer, and I was really worried. I was worried about it. I told my wife, I was like, who's going to cut the grass while I'm gone,
Yeah.
She's like, that's what you're worried about? I'm like, well, I mean, So I paid somebody to do it for the first time ever, and it
Nice.
doesn't look as good as the way I do it, but at least it's done, So,
It's that 70% rule in business, right?
Exactly.
It's like I've hired people over the years, and it can be so aggravating to be like, I wouldn't do it that way. I would do it this, but if they can do it, it doesn't even necessarily mean they're doing it incorrect. But if they could do 70% the way you would do it, like you're duplicating your efforts, but that I can see both sides of it.
Exactly.
For sure. Yeah.
I used to one of the very first properties I bought, those 4 units down in Dearborn, and when I used to go cut that grass, and the woman, there was an older lady that lived next door, and she goes, and at that point they didn't know I was the owner; they thought I was just cutting grass,
Yeah.
And she was like, "Hey, would you cut my grass for $20?" And I said, because it was pretty tall, and she was older, I said, "No, I'll cut it for you for free, though." And she goes, "Oh no, you can't afford to do it." I'm like, "Well, I maybe can't, but I'm going to do it for you, this one time, And she was like, but I'm like, I don't. What do I care? I mean, it's like I'm there, if I can help,
No, I love that. There is a part of me as your property manager. I'm with Daniel where I'm like,
exactly.
Hey, that's our job. Let us do our job. But there's also a part of me that I really respect that because you don't meet a lot of like there's so many out of state investors and even a lot of local investors who are just like, I mean, I do it myself sometimes with properties I own where it's like I want to have everything systemized. I want to be hands off. And if you're going to invest in real estate, at the end of the day, you at the very least you have to understand like you own a real property that has a real person in it, and like there's just at some point there is a personal connection to what goes on there, and I think it's a refreshing philosophy that you have, that it's
Well, it just again, we briefly talked when I started buying real estate, I bought it. I wanted to start a company with 2 of my kids, just something for us to do together. And I never got into it because any of us needed the monthly income. The monthly income's nice, right? But I got into it because I wanted to build a portfolio over whatever 10, 15, 20 years. That would be a couple $1 million maybe by the time we were done with it. And if we wanted to cash out, that was our payday, right? So I didn't do it. And again, Daniel gives me a lot of grief because when I redo a property, I put so much money into it that at the end of the day, it's hard to make any money because I put too much money into it. But again, I do it for different reasons.
Yeah.
But again, I think people have to decide when you're going into real estate, what are you going in? You got to have a goal.
Yeah.
And if you don't have a goal, then don't go into it. And I think a couple of them, but I talked to a couple of young kids that want to get in the business and stuff like that, and they say just pros and cons. And I'm very honest with them because if you can't make money doing it, if you don't have a good end game, then don't do it.
Yeah.
Because you're just going to put money into it, and every month, you're going to be in the hole, and it makes 0 sense to do it.
I kind of started thinking about it this way, and I put it to people like, if you want to treat real estate like kind of a cash vending machine, like I'm just going to put some cash in and hopefully take more cash out like pretty quickly. Right. It's not really a good avenue. Just go start a company or like make trades on eBay and stuff. Like that's how you do that. Like yes, real estate's a real asset that grows in value, but I mean it's about growing wealth over time is what real estate is great for. And I think and maybe it's because of some radical years of appreciation and people talk about all sorts of different things online, that there's almost this pressure that I think a lot of young people that are considering starting in real estate feel like they just have to go and get flip a property, get this kind of incredible deal, or they have to have a really incredible level of cash flow to be doing it right. Yep. But in reality, like no, start slow and build, make wise, consistent investments.
Yep.
That's how I've seen.
Well, I mean, and you know better than anybody because we did them together. But I mean, I got lucky because I had a friend of mine who taught me, who on the rental side of it, I wanted to learn from him, and he had at the time probably like 8 or 10 units, and I finally said to him, I said, "Is there any units? Do you want to sell anything?" And he goes, maybe I got 4 units on Dearborn that I'll sell you, and I think he was just done with them. Yeah. They weren't great properties. In fact, they were horrible on the inside. He had never renovated. He was a guy that did very well in real estate, but didn't put a dime back into them.
Yeah.
But I also, I bought 4 units for $78,000.
Yeah.
And
I remember that.
Yeah, and at the time I said, hey, look, between the three of us, the kids, we got about $50,000 to invest. Would you hold the paper? And he goes, yeah, I'll hold. So he even held $30,000 in paper for me for like 4 years or 3 years.
Wow.
Over time, I renovated each one, and you know the story. I mean, I don't know, it was probably 3 years after I bought them, we sold them to maybe one of your investors for like $230,000.
Yeah.
Right. So
and that investor was happy with that.
Of course he is, because and I know he's done work to them.
Yeah.
But those are great properties that it's one of those properties where it got a little stale because the same people had lived in those units. I mean, I think 2 of the people that had lived there for like 5, 6, 7, 10 years. I mean, Chuck was one of them.
I remember Chuck.
And Chuck lived there for like 20 years, and he was paying like $400 a month. I'm like, well, you got to get. I mean, Chuck's either got to come to the table or he's got to get out. And Chuck finally got out, right? But the place. He was a hoarder too.
I was about to say Chuck was my first hoarder.
It was
tenant.
terrible, and so. But there's a perfect example of a property in Indianapolis. I mean, you couldn't buy 4 units like that for $78,000 today, or in the last 3 or 4 years.
I'm not sure if you could buy one.
You may not. That. I mean, you and I have many stories of buying. But that's where I got lucky. I mean, when I started, I bought that, and then I bought a property at 37th and Kenwood for $17,000.
Yeah.
So I got lucky. And, a couple wise people always told me, I mean, the only way you make money in real estate is if you buy it the right way. Because you'll never get out of the hole. If you pay too much, it's tough to get out of the hole long term, right? So if you buy it right, anybody can make money in real estate. And you just have to decide. I mean, the 2 properties we bought at Moreland are a perfect example. The guy wanted out of him, and we bought him right, and and they're great properties.
Yeah.
So I mean, I think it's but it's funny. A couple of these kids that I mentor or whatever, I tell them all the time, if I knew today, if I was 52 years old when I started the company, if I knew today, even when I was 25 years old, and you have a lot of young people, I mean, like I would have bought a property every year from the time I was 25 to 35, or 2 properties a year. I would have, done whatever I could, because by the time you're 50 or 60 years old, you're sitting on a couple $1 million worth of real estate that you can retire or take the cash every month or do whatever you want to do.
Yeah. What's that equity picture look like?
Exactly. Right. So, I mean, that's what I tell them. I mean, just figure out how to do it the right way. Just but to your point, don't jump in because, you want to buy real estate. You got to make the right moves to do it.
Yeah. You have to be in it. If you're 25 and because I mean, there might be a lot of 25-year-olds hearing this. It's like, and if you're thinking about jumping in,
right.
You have to be in it for the long haul.
No question.
You got to be in it to. I want to own. I mean, stuff could happen. You might make some moves and sell things here and there, but I personally believe that whatever you're buying, like unless it is purely structured as a flip, the intent should be I want to hold this thing until I'm 40, 50,
exactly.
Down 60 years down the road.
Right. Again, at 25 years old, you should be looking at what do I want to do when I'm 55 years old? I mean, and if it's a goal of retiring early, owning real estate is the best thing you could ever, in my opinion, it's the best thing you could ever do. Yeah. Whether it's retail or commercial or just residential. I mean, it's a great opportunity.
Well, it's funny you bring up retirement. Like the number of real estate agents I meet that don't invest in real estate themselves, I always like you're nuts. You realize this is our retirement plan, right? This is all we have. Like we're 1099. Like there's no 401k for real estate agents unless you set up your own IRA.
Right.
But
that's your 401k right there.
Yeah,
I was with a buddy of mine who's a very successful real estate agent. He's probably, I don't know how, he's maybe in his 40s. And 2 years ago when I sat with him, he didn't own a solitary property. And I said, when are you going to start? And I just saw him the other day for the first time, and I think he's got 12 or 14 doors.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, and he's got a great financer. He's got all those things now set up in play. He's buying units all over. It's fantastic because once you get going,
there's so many reasons, right? Like one, it's like put your money where your mouth is. Yep. Like you're telling other people to invest in real estate, you ought to be doing it yourself. 2, it's how many other people get 3% of their down payment back
Right.
at closing.
Exactly.
Like, real estate agents get that.
Right.
It's like use your company discount.
Right.
You know, like
Well,
that.
you're the first one to see the property. I mean, like if when a property goes on the market, if you're not looking every day, and I know you do,
Yeah.
if you're not looking at properties every day,
Yeah.
I mean, it gives you an opportunity to step in before anybody ever sees it.
Right.
You know,
And that's the other thing. I think if you think of yourself as somebody who can be a good resource for your clients, then you ought to be a good resource for yourself.
No
Like those lender connections, those like if you can problem solve for your clients, like find a way to apply that,
Yeah.
you know, for your own situation.
Yeah. Well, the other thing too is, I mean, whether you're a real estate or an investor, like I was just talking to a friend of mine the other day, is, most of the properties we own are within a mile of each other, except for the ones I bought on the west side. And I feel like, the area that I started investing in, 10th and rural, that area, like I know that area really well.
Yeah.
Like when I look at stuff you send me or somebody sends me. I mean, I know that area pretty well, and I know will it lease and how much it'll cost to renovate. I know all that stuff because I've done it now a bunch. And for me, I think we've been successful because we can focus in an area, and we know it. So not that you shouldn't be out looking to, I mean, the west side. I wasn't going to go to the west side until the deal got right. When you and I kept negotiating back and forth, and the guy got real. It was a good opportunity for me to go to the west side.
Yeah.
But the other problem is I have had a dozen opportunities to go to Shelbyville. I went and looked at with a guy. I bet I looked at 10 units in Shelbyville, and I stopped going to Shelbyville because it took me an hour to get there.
Yeah.
And I knew, and this is so stupid and irresponsible of me, is to say, because I spend so much time at my properties, I'm like, I don't have 2 hours of my day to go to Shelbyville to go check on them. I do drive-bys every week at almost every property I own. And it's not because I don't have anything else better to do. It's because I just want to go see what everything looks like,
Yeah.
And the opportunities that I passed on in Shelbyville, I could kick myself.
Yeah.
Because I know guys that have bought, I know guys that have bought the same
And
properties.
seeing the growth. Yeah.
Exactly.
From the market. Yeah.
Exactly.
Well,
and it's one of those things about, like, I think you really got to look at the opportunity and not focus on the area. I mean, you got to be open to going to different places. And that's a fault of mine. I mean, I should have done it.
it's a philosophical choice at the
It
end
is.
of the day, because I mean, it goes back to what we were saying in the beginning. Like I respect what you do because you like to be hands-on, but I've heard from plenty of investors. I follow this guy on social media that he's like an LA, real estate investor and an influencer and all that. And he said something once where he was like, I would only buy in LA because I wanted to be able to drive to the properties and see it. And then I bought my, first property in, I forget where, I don't know if it was Indy or, another, but it was like a Midwestern city. He's like, I bought my first property there. And then I completely changed that rule to I won't buy anything within an hour of my house.
Yeah, right. Just for that reason.
Well, and he said it was like because it forces me to have the systems and people in place to to know that it's never dependent on me to do it, which is like I see that from a company systems perspective.
Sure.
But I also see it from the perspective of like that's not why I'm in this. I'm not necessarily in this.
I think look, at the end of the day, it doesn't. You got to decide what you want to do, right? Mm-hmm. And everybody's different. So I mean, whatever makes you more comfortable. Look, you're spending a lot of money and a lot of time, so do what makes you feel comfortable.
Yeah.
If you want to be in a certain area, then stay in that area. If you don't,
Yeah.
I have a buddy of mine that's big in real estate, and when I tell him where I own properties, he's like, oh God, I'd never buy a place down. But
Sure.
that's okay. My mother gets nervous when I go to 10th and Rural by myself. Because I drove her by to see some of my properties. We were downtown and had an hour to free, and it was during the day.
Yeah.
So I drove her by. She goes, "Where are we?" And I said, "Well, we're 10th and Rural." She goes, "Somebody got shot." I was watching the news. I'm like, somebody got shot in Carmel.
I was gonna say somebody's been shot everywhere.
Exactly. So, but
At Fisher's just this week, I think.
yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
that was crazy. I drive by that Britain Tavern all the time.
Yeah.
Shout out.
So, but but it is one of the things and you'll remember this because it was a little bit before you, but I bought a property at 37th and Kenwood.
Yeah.
And it was the first. after I bought it, and I paid $17,000 for it. Mm-hmm. And after I was in Florida when I bought it. I did zero due diligence on it, but how do you lose on $17,000? And I called to get the gas set up at the property, and the woman, she just kind of laughs. I said, "What's so funny?" She goes, "The gas hasn't been turned on in this house in 4 years."
Yeah.
I said, "Well, there's people living there." She goes, "Yeah, but they're not paying for it." You know?
Well, yeah, they've got
exactly
the oven's open or something.
Yeah.
Maybe there's electric.
So I renovated almost. I was 90% through with the property, and I had to put a new furnace in and so forth. And somebody broke in the house.
Yeah.
And they stole all the copper in the basement.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, because that was Kenwood, right? You're talking
Kenwood.
about because I remember because that had that side door that went straight into the basement.
It did, and so I learned a very valuable lesson. So I knocked on the doors there was an elderly lady who lived behind me, and I said to her, I said, "Hey," I introduced myself. And I said, "Hey, I got robbed last night." She goes, "Oh, I know." I said, "Did you happen to see who it was?" She goes, "Oh yeah." I said, "You didn't call the police?" "Oh no, I would never call the police." And I learned a very valuable lesson to that point so I got to meet her, and I went and met every one of my neighbors that lived there, and I started cutting the grass.
Yeah.
And I started cutting the lady's grass behind me, the elderly lady, because her grass was tall. And I never got robbed again.
Yeah.
And I learned a very valuable lesson at that point is, what, there's nothing wrong with, like, getting to know the people that are going to live there, because they're all great people. Yep. I mean, everybody that lived around that house, the nicest people I've ever met. Yeah. And every time I went there to cut the grass or do work or whatever, I always spent probably an extra half hour just talking to people. Yeah. And I realized at that point is that I would never get robbed again because I got ingrained in the system, and and they respected me and I respected them.
Yeah.
And I learned, it was a very valuable lesson. I mean, it's probably $5,000, $6,000, $7,000 worth of stuff that they stole from me.
Yeah.
And at that point, I'm like, I don't understand why people, why do people want to steal from me? But that was early. I mean, I was a year into the business, and I didn't understand that, how I should have done things differently.
Whenever we see those problems happen, they do happen with, we deal with it. It's unoccupied properties for the most part. That's what I always explain to people, like, because sometimes I'll have, we'll be working with, out-of-state investor or something. I'll be doing a video walkthrough, and they're like, this AC has a cage on it. Is this a really rough area? And it's like, well, it's not a description of how rough the area is or bad or good. We are in a urban environment where if something is laying around, like somebody's going to come, and it's just a crime of opportunity. Somebody's going to come take it, and if it's a AC that's worth $4,000, like somebody's going to take it if it's not tied down, or somebody's going to break it who doesn't have a place to live. They're going to break into a place, and especially in the winter, we deal with squatting issues,
all the time,
it's but I think what you said is very, very important, and it's something it can be really a challenge because we see it in property management.
Sure.
We're in that like kind of tension in the middle of that. We work with so many owners that want to be really hands off and removed from the property, which I can understand, like, outsourcing tasks, but when it transitions to I want it out of mind. I don't want to think about what's going on there. I don't care what's kind of going on with that property, and I don't like it when it's kind of is this certain attitude, and then we're left with the job of well, how can we make this go well for you? Sometimes like that, it requires owner involvement. Like we harp on with our team all the time, like. You have to have a backbone, not just with tenants, but with owners. Sure. Like you have to be able to tell, you are the eyes and ears with the owners. And sometimes that means you have to be the bearer of bad news and say like, hey, this thing you bought from a wholesaler, like it's not as turnkey as they told you. Like it needs a lot of work before we can, kind of rent it for what you're expecting. But yeah, just that
it's the toughest part of your
community.
Job. I mean, because I deal with your guys all the time. I mean, it is the toughest part of, I think probably 95%, and that's a made up number, but of investors are out of, they don't care, right? I mean, they don't want to be involved, right? So, I mean, they rely on guys like you, Daniel to do the job that they need. And that's the toughest job of, telling somebody they got to put a $1,500 this in because it's bad, without trying to fix it or whatever.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mean, that's, I still, it's probably one of my biggest struggles. And I don't go, unfortunately, I don't go through the exercise until January, which is not very smart, because I kind of wait and look at my P&L, when my gal does all my taxes and stuff, just to say, okay, did I make any money? And it's not until January I look and say, I spent a fortune. Like, I have a property that every year I have a $3,000 or $4,000 water problem, and it just happens. Great property, but for some reason, something happens on that property. It costs me $3,000 or $4,000, and that's hard when you look at it. When you go back to it, it's like, wow, that's $4,000 I should have in my pocket. Why does this continue to happen to me?
Right.
And those are hard conversations, because I always get those phone calls from one of your guys saying, we got a problem.
We got an issue. Yeah.
Yeah. But look, I mean, I'm not buying new houses either, so I'm not stupid. I understand that the older the house, the more risk I have.
Yeah.
And I get that, and that's just part of it.
Yeah. And it's great that you have that, like, that balanced expectation of, like, hey, I got this house for $17,000.
Exactly.
It is what it is. We're going to deal with it. But we definitely do work with other clients that, I won't call them out by name here, but, like, where it's they want to have it both ways.
Sure.
Right? It's like, hey, I got this property for, I expect to be, and these are in today's numbers, of, like, I want to buy a property for $100,000 or $150,000. I expect it to be completely turnkey.
Yeah.
It's like, well,
it's not possible.
I mean, you might not have to do anything right away, but there's going to be some deferred maintenance.
Yeah.
It's
not possible. I mean, I've always gone through the concept of, like, when I buy a property, and I've bought plenty of $100,000 properties, to say, is it better for me just to go in and, like, put new furnaces, new air conditioning, do everything by the time I buy it? Because, and I talk myself out of it eventually, because I know I'm going to have to, because the reality of it is, if I put a new furnace in every unit I buy, now I got to either have somebody maintain it.
Yep.
Because the tenant's not going to do it. Tenant's not going to put in, new filters and all that. They're just not.
Yeah.
I've left. I'll go buy 2 or 3 filters and just leave them down. They'll never put them in.
Yeah.
It's just they just don't care.
Yeah, I've tried that with mine too.
Yeah, right. So it's part of it. So I don't know what the right answer is. I mean, the problem is I put too much money into my units, and I don't know that unless from a standpoint of when I go to sell, it does help me at that point, but
yeah,
I really haven't sold much of that. So, the problem is, it's still 5 years down the road or 10 years down the road. If I just decide I want to sell something, then you're kind of starting all over again.
Well, to your point about like the long-term play, I think that's good advice for anyone who's interested in getting into real estate, that things might not cash flow right at the beginning, or the play should always be planned for 25 years from now.
Yeah.
Because ultimately, if you're using the property as an ATM, those $5,000 water bills are going to eat 6 months to 8 months of your profit for the whole year.
No question.
Yeah, don't rely on your rental property portfolio to finance your lifestyle.
Yeah, you can't.
We've ran into too many clients like that over the years where
I'm sure.
We have sort of a list of red flags that we have when a client says a certain thing to us, and one of them is like, hey, where is this month's rent? I need to pay my mortgage.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you don't have 1 month's mortgage payment, in cash reserves to, get through that.
Yeah, I mean, look, and again, that's why I from the day I began, I never looked and said this, because it can't afford to finance my lifestyle. So, I don't want it to. I mean, I want it to be above and beyond, or, every year we do a little disbursement for, and nobody expects it. So when it comes, it's nice. It's like, hey, here's a check for what we did this year.
Yeah.
And it's just a different philosophy. And I think, look, we've built up a nice, if tomorrow I had to sell them for whatever reason, we'd walk away and make a lot of money on it, and it was worth it.
Yeah. And I think think what's great is you're going to make a lot of people jealous if we talk about the numbers of your portfolio too much.
Yeah.
But I think one of the great things to be learned from it is, you in many ways, like you were investing for cash flow.
Yep.
Almost before people were even kind of speaking in those terms. Like
Right.
you were searching for, we've talked about it before, I think, on this, where like now everybody is like excited if they could get something that hits the 1% rule, which
I didn't even know what that meant.
Yeah.
I mean, before I started in real estate, I think, somebody wants, okay, this will be a 2. I don't even know what does that mean?
Yeah. And
People, I mean, it's so, and now of course I look at them like, to your point, like, I mean, I pass on a lot of deals today if it doesn't make financial sense, even at a 1%, because I've had 3%. I've had 4%, on what I paid for it.
Which is wild.
Wild. And so I felt like everything should be like that,
Well, but I think what's cool is like over the last 7 years, you've watched the market change,
totally.
and you've adjusted to it and adapted. And what you're saying now of like, if I sold everything, I'd walk away with all this. Because I think there's a thing that happens. We've talked to other people that have grown sizable portfolios that have kind of made the point like, I started in this investing for cash flow. And there's a part of me that's like, especially if you're somebody who you are trying to gain some financial freedom, like there is a reason to prioritize cash flow over everything else. But that starts to shift, I think, pretty quickly when you realize like, oh, the cash flow allows me to hold on to this. Like I'm not hemorrhaging money because that's not sustainable for anybody. Yep. Whether you make a lot of money or a little bit of money, it just doesn't make sense. Right. But it's like the cash flow is just a way of holding on. Yeah. But the equity is that's the real treasure.
Exactly.
Right?
Well, and that's what, I kind of use the reference of like when you're 25 years old, a couple of these guys I've talked to, they're not married. They either own their own home or whatever, they rent home. But I'm like, if you're 25 years old and you don't have children, a significant other or whatever, it's a great opportunity to go start buying real estate, right? Because even if you're upside down a couple $100 a month, if you finance it, if you're upside down a couple $100, you can make that up pretty easily. And it's better to do it now before you're 30 or 35 and you have a kid or 2 or 3 and a mortgage. Because then, you'll never have excess cash to do it. So, I mean, that's why I said I wish, 35 years ago, if I go back, I mean, that's the first thing I'd start doing.
Do you know about the multifamily change with FHA?
No.
So, FHA loan, 3.5% down.
Yeah.
Back when I was buying my first house, 2016, this wasn't, it was only for single families.
Okay.
Now the FHA extends to 2 to 4 unit residential multifamily. Right? So you can put 3.5% down on a quadplex.
But you have to live there?
You got to live there. But that you made
But still,
me,
even to the point, like, I mean, take the 25-year-old kid.
Yep.
I mean,
that's what made me think of it.
What a great idea, right?
Yeah.
To live in a place that you could live in one of the 4 units. I mean, it's genius.
Because I've done that in the past year. I've helped 5 or 6 clients that are in that 20 to 30 age range. And they're almost always, it's always the same. It's usually a dude. Yeah, and it's like, it's somebody who is like, not married, doesn't have kids. Right. And I'm like, I don't think my wife would let me do this, but if I were in your position, like this is exactly what I'd be doing.
I mean, I don't know how long you have to live there under the FHA, but yeah, I mean, it makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a great way to get started with little money down.
Yeah.
The other thing,
then you just move out, right?
Well, that's the question. Is I don't know how that works.
I think it's exactly, because I think
you can live anywhere for a year.
Yeah, I think it's a year, and I think they're not, they don't care after that if you move out and rent the unit. And then the other thing is, I think I will get it wrong, so I'm not going to say it, but there's a certain amount of time where you could do the FHA again.
Sure.
So it's actually a thing where you can rinse and repeat. And just keep.
Look, there's so many opportunities if you've got time and you're willing to surf the internet and do it. I mean, I watch all this stuff on Instagram. I follow everybody, and I'm just amazed on how smart people are and how they get to do certain things. I mean, it's brilliant. I'm not that smart, so I haven't understood how to do all the things, and my whole big thing was I really didn't want to finance homes when we were buying them. Because I said, hey, I'm 50-some years old, right? So I don't want to owe people money. And again, if I look back, when interest rates, were 2 to 5 years ago,
free money.
Now we have a little mortgage on one of them because it's was a 2%er.
Yeah.
You know, and it's like, man, you know, that's when we should have been buying everything we could buy
Right.
at 2%.
Hindsight's always 20/20.
It is. But again,
Yeah.
you know, like, I mean, I told my partner, I said, look, if interest rates were to go down again, you know, even though I'm 5 or 6 years older, I'll do it. I'll finance. We can do whatever you want to do because it makes sense.
Yeah.
And I think when you get to a certain point, if you own, you know, 10, 15, or 20 units, you got to look at them. Like I look at everything individually on a P&L, right?
Yeah.
Every unit. But if you have 15 or 20 units, it doesn't really matter. Like, so if you finance 10 of them and 10 of them you own free and clear, you look at it as a portfolio of 20. You don't look at them individually. And so I don't know if the interest rates will get back to 2, 3, or 4%. I think they will eventually. But then, I remember you were one of the first realtors that always would say to me, you should buy stuff now, even though it's at 6%, because when it does go back to 4, I mean, there won't be anything available. And I believe that.
Yeah.
Because look, this market has changed again from starting, 7 years ago to today. I mean, you just can't do the same things. It's hard. It's hard to find a $50,000 house to buy. It's hard to find a $100,000 house or duplex that's worth buying.
Yeah.
They're there, but you got to make a decision as to is it the right place. And
they get snapped up quick. Like there's so
Totally.
much technology has made it so that people from anywhere in the world can look at the Indianapolis real estate market, and sometimes that's that it's the two-edged sword of the attention that this market has received. Because back in the the early days of us working together, I mean there was still felt like plenty going on in other real estate investment activity, but compared to now, like
Crazy.
it was, you were kind of out there alone. It was like you were playing alone in the sandbox, like to just be like, which of these properties do I want to buy?
Right. Well, now, in fact, I know this for a fact. I mean, there's a lot of California money here.
Oh yeah.
Right. So, I mean, if you live in California, I spent a lot of time there. You can't afford to buy a house.
Yeah.
So why not take that money and buy in a market, whether it's Indianapolis or Cincinnati or Cleveland, right? Why not just take that money that I'm not spending in California and buy real estate here?
Yeah.
And what happens is, and you know this better than anybody, is it all of a sudden takes a guy like me out of the bidding range, because if I'm willing to pay 100, a guy in California is willing to pay 125 because he doesn't know the market as well as I do, and he doesn't care.
Yeah.
Right. So,
and they're also creating the market for the future.
No question. I mean, absolutely. And so I think I'm not going to say it's hurt the Indianapolis market, because it hasn't. It's made it more difficult for buyers like me, who I like a deal. I mean, anybody that does business with me knows that I'm never going to pay more than I should for a place. But to my advantage, it's served me well over the last 7 years.
Sure.
I passed, again, I mean, I own 2 properties 3 doors away from each other. The property next door to me came available, and, the guy wanted 120, and I said, I'll give you 100 and I'll pay, 7 days. And they said no. And, next thing it sold for 110. Well, I probably would have paid 110, but I wasn't giving that, so that kind of bites me, as well, because I paid 100 for the house next door, so I want to pay 100 for this house,
And it's pretty frustrating how fast all that happens now.
It was within a day.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden
which nobody as a buyer, being an investor, like you don't want to feel pressured.
Right.
Right.
But I'm also like, I know for a fact when I find a deal, I'm willing to do it. But, I think because of how I started, I'm a bit stubborn from the standpoint of it. This is, and this, I mean, look, the 2 places we bought in Moreland, that took a month to close, because I was set on my number and he was set on his number. And then eventually you called me and said, okay, he's set on closer to your number, and we did it.
Yeah.
But, and again, I've done well from that standpoint, because I think I know what the market for me, maybe not what the true market is, but what the value for me is. And so, and I tend to kind of stay in my lane when I do that. And as we kind of talked about earlier, there's people that don't love doing business with me because, I should learn to pay more. Well, it's not your money. So,
There's something I really like about that Because I'll tell you, that doesn't make you cheap.
No,
right?
I'm not cheap.
And I think there's an important distinction in that, because I've over the years I've dealt with hundreds of negotiation scenarios, and a very like common buyer attitude is, what's the asking price? 80% of that.
Right, sure.
And that's an attitude that I get a lot of people, from out of state and out of the country that always want to do that.
Yep.
It doesn't matter what they're asking on the MLS, 80%,
right,
or 70%.
Yep.
And I kind of look at that and I'm like, that means that you're showing the seller you don't know the market.
Sure.
You're at the very least you're showing me,
Yep,
as your agent, that you don't know like what you actually want to pay for this property.
Yep.
So like the advice I always give new investors is, I have this spreadsheet analysis tool.
Yep.
You should run this. You should run your pro forma on at least 10 deals, on the 10 prospective deals.
Sure.
Plug in the rent, plug in the, what you're going to spend roughly. And so you're going to produce a cash on cash return and a 5-year equity growth projection for 10 different deals before you offer on anything.
Yep.
Because what that's going to do is it's going to educate you on what is possible in the market.
Yep.
And your expectation should be at least somewhere in the realm of what is possible. And if it's not the right market.
Exactly.
Find it, go to Terre Haute, find
Right,
another thing. But so what I like about like yours is different in that, hey, I know that this is the number I want to pay for this property, and I'm just going to stick to it.
Right.
I like that so much more than I'll get people that are like, hey, I'm willing to pay 90, but let's offer 70.
Yeah.
And then, because I know they'll come down and I'm like, okay.
But if I start at 90, I'll never come down.
Exactly. If you start it, then that's going to come across to the seller like a non-starter, because
Right.
they now that they're afraid to go under contract with you, because you still have your due diligence period. Like, what are you going to try to
exactly.
do to them then? So it's such a better negotiation tactic to say, here's my number.
Yeah.
And then when they counter you, say, here's my number again. Like that's better. It's better to just.
I'll tell you though, I think like probably the best properties I've ever bought are when I wasn't looking.
Yeah.
Somebody brought me a deal and said, you got to look at this deal. It's X.
Yeah.
And I don't know, there's something about me not, it's something about just a deal being put in front of me of somebody that wants to really sell. Those have tended to go, even again, going back to the Moreland, like, it took me a month, but I wasn't looking. I didn't need to buy it.
Yeah.
So it's one of those deals when you don't need to buy something, you tend to get a really good opportunity.
Yeah.
And as long as the people you're dealing with, and I don't do it in an arrogant way. I just do it about like, I don't need it. So if but here's my number. And if they want to, then call me.
Yeah.
And those have turned out to be, the Kenwood deal was a perfect example. It was December 22nd or something. And they wanted to close in 5 days.
Yeah.
And honestly, I may have been the only guy that would be stupid enough to buy a house in 5 days. I was in Florida, never even look at it,
Yeah.
I never even did a drive-by. But I was like, here's my, they wanted 40,000 or something. I'm like, well, okay, great. Good for them.
Yeah. Works out. Yeah.
But again, you're talking about 6 years ago, and the market just, it's just not the same.
Back then you had I think it was the tail end of so many people had bought during kind of the recovery from the financial crisis.
Yep.
There was so much inventory in Indianapolis
Tons.
that was just being sat on.
Yep.
They were like, I called them, like, my word for it back then was, they're just poker chips that people have been just holding on to, and they're ready to cash in.
Yep.
But they've been boarded up. They've done nothing to them. So.
Which is such a bad, it's funny because when I drive around the city today, I say to myself all the time is like, I wish there was a person I could go to. I look by and I see all these boarded houses, and they may be owned by the city at this point. Yeah. And I think to myself all the time is, you're doing yourself an injustice.
Yeah.
When you could go to a really good investor and say, look, I got 100 homes. If you do this, and this, here's what, I mean, I think the city itself could do a much better job of how do we take an area and sell it to a really good investor at a stupid price for them to go in and do what's right for the market.
Yeah. At least partner with
whatever.
So some kind of like there's a hunger from enough people that want to add value to properties. Like there shouldn't be. I agree with you. There really shouldn't be,
because there's a lot of boarded. There's still. I mean, in areas. I mean, there's still even in the areas that I play in. I mean, there's boarded up homes all over.
Yeah.
And I just think it's killing the neighborhood.
Yeah, I think now when you see it, because I think again back to 2018, a lot of that was it was like Kenwood example. It was like this has been sitting like this for 4 years.
Right.
Nobody's done anything with it, but I think now when you see it, there is some dumb money in this market. There's people that have gotten in over their head, and so they are paying the property taxes. They are like they think they can make it work.
Yeah.
And so I feel like sadly, I think that's what it is. It's investors that are like kind of hanging on to.
Yeah, the reality of it is, I'm never going to sit on a property. I'm never going to board a property up. I mean, I think it's for an investor that's trying to figure out, is it the right market for them, and so they board it up. That's just stupid. I mean, you either got to be all in or out.
Right. You're wasting carrying costs.
You're wasting. Yeah. I mean, wasting carrying costs. You're wasting time. You're wasting money. It makes no sense. But I think that does exist.
Yeah, but it harkens back to the start of this of like you're going and you're mowing the lawns of your own properties. Like you wouldn't be able to stand by and just kind of let the property exist that way if it was in your own backyard.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I think as an investor, you have to realize that the people that live in your units, they live in them. I mean, they're not going to take care of them like you take care of your own house. And that's my whole, I don't want to ever live next door to somebody that treats their house that way. And that's why I do it. I mean, it's like, okay, I don't want to, I think I got a phone call from the city one time about trash that I didn't even know was there. And that really upset me because they were going to charge me like $300.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, that doesn't make any sense to me.
Right.
But I've got a guy that owns 2 houses next to me. He owns both of them. And I've called the city on him because it's terrible what it's doing to the neighborhood. And and the city shows up and he threatens to kill him. So there's not much they can do about it, right? But it just I think the city's doing a great job. I mean, a perfect example of is down in that 10th, and like if you've been down to LaSalle, they're building brand new townhomes. I don't know yet if they're going to sell them or rent them, but here's an area where houses are selling for $100,000 to $200,000, maybe a big duplex, and they're building all these townhomes. I mean, it's fantastic. And it'll bring, I think, younger people in, and it'll help the entire neighborhood.
Yeah, that whole 10th Street corridor. There's just a lot. There has been, but there's continuing to be a lot of revitalization happening there, which is great.
And it's fantastic.
Yeah,
I mean, I think people are really trying to make the neighborhood work. And I'll tell you, since I had a big problem at this house, it's the first time it's ever happened to me, and this is where Daniel, your guy, he said, "Would you please let me earn my money?" I'm like, "Oh, I'm going to let you earn your money because I'm not getting involved in this one." And he and I laugh a lot about it because normally I would say I'll handle it, I'll take care of it, and he's like, "Just let me do it," and he did. But it's a shame it gets to a certain point, and it's never happened to me before where just somebody's abused, has lived in my place forever, and then just something happened. But
yeah,
and I knew, people were still going into the house even after everybody left.
Yeah.
And that's a perfect example of us. I went and knocked on the guy who lives 2 doors down, and I said, "What's going on?" "Oh yeah." And he goes, "I see people coming and going all day long." And I apologized. I went to 3 of the neighbors, and I said, "I'm sorry. I promise you this is not going to happen." And the guy who lives 2 doors down, he goes, "Hey, I've already, since we met," he goes, I took all my cameras and I focused them on your house so that I can." And I'm like, "Thank you."
Yeah.
And I traded him out some stuff. He wanted some stuff that was in the house. I'm like, "Take it."
Yeah.
It's all going to be brand new. But my point is, like, people don't want to live like that.
Yeah.
I mean, your neighbors don't want to live like that.
Yeah.
So, you got to help. You got to help where you can.
Really goes back. Yeah. Just the importance of relationships in real estate. Like, you are if you're investing in particularly single family and residential multifamily, like you're inserting yourself into a community.
Yeah.
Like whether you know it or not. And I think some of these especially hedge fund investors, but even mom and pop investors that are just, they're not local. It's easy to just be like, that's just a line on a spreadsheet.
Yeah.
And it's just out of sight, out of mind. And
I met a guy recently who is part of a hedge fund. He's their maintenance, like he runs all their maintenance. And they got like 3,000 units or something.
Yeah.
And he said, "Oh no, we're never gonna. I mean, this house will never do that here, because it's not part of the P&L.
Right.
We got bigger fish to fry, everywhere else. I mean, I think the hedge fund market. I mean, those guys are coming in and they're buying, thousands of homes across the country.
Yeah.
Right. And I'm not crazy about how they run it because it's just really a P&L.
I mean, if you think about it too, just from a leverage perspective, they've got a lot of economy of scale.
Sure.
They have they've got enough to hire a legal team.
No question.
And it just becomes the P&L. What shapes that, what informs that is, how much does it take for a tenant to actually sue us?
Right.
And then that's when it just like starts to get really uncomfy for everybody.
Yeah, I mean, the term, right, the only term I knew in that real estate business was if you were a slumlord, right? I mean, that's a term back in probably the 80s that started, I mean, I'm a slumlord. And I never really understood what it really meant until I got into the business. I'm like, well, I don't want to be that.
Yeah.
Right? Because
you see the properties when you're buying them,
exactly.
And you're like, oh, somebody let it get to this.
I had a 1-bedroom house that finally the woman moved out of right after I bought it. And it was 500 square feet. And she and her husband lived there with 4 children. And when they moved out, I went in and I'm like, how could you live here? How could you? I mean, the tub was rusted out. I mean, how could you?
Yeah.
And that was probably the people that owned it said, I'm not putting a new tub because it's only $500 a month or $400 a month. Can't afford to, but you can't. I mean, people can't live like that.
Yeah, you can't think that way. I mean, it's one thing to like evaluate an investment from that standpoint of like, hey, it's cheap rent, and if I have to pay $4,000 to like replace a furnace, like ooh, there goes all my cash flow
for the entire year.
And if you're not willing to cope with that, then maybe it's not the right
totally
investment. Agree. But once you're in it, once you own it, like it's not an option. It's not like, hey, right. I really want my cash flow numbers to look good, so I'm not going to do this essential repair.
Yeah, but you know what? I mean, I think the biggest mistake new real estate people make is that they buy a property for X and they don't put anything on top of it to say, what does it need today?
Yeah.
Right. So the first thing we do every time we buy a property is, whether it's $100,000 or $200,000, is okay, what's it going to take to get it to the level that we want it to be?
Yeah.
So if we buy a property for $100,000, I know, I bought one and it needed a new roof. It needed, new gutters. And so I knew when I bought it for $100, it was going to cost me $20 to get it to where I needed it to be.
Yeah.
So as long as you think that way when you buy it, if you buy it for $100 and you don't think you're going to put a dime into it, do not buy it.
It's a mistake I see when, and I won't let my clients make it, but if I was a more commission, like hungry agent, like I probably wouldn't say anything, but like I see newer investors, they'll look at a property and they'll be like, that unit's tenant occupied, so turnkey.
Yeah, no.
It's like, no, that's not what that means.
Yeah.
Like not at all. Like, and they'll even get the inspection report and be like, well, but it's tenant occupied, so who cares if the furnace is 20 years old? It's like, well, you should, because who do you think the tenant's calling if that goes out?
Well, I tell you and Daniel taught me something a long time ago, and I never would have thought about it. And Daniel harps on me more about it than anything. Is they'd much rather me buy a property that is not occupied, because And I got burned one time. I bought a property that was occupied on one side. The day I bought it, the woman never paid me a dime for 6 months.
Yeah.
It took me 6 months to get her out of the house.
Yeah.
And Daniel's point is always good, is like, buy a unit that nobody lives in.
Yeah.
Because now we can put out the right people in that unit.
Right.
And if you're good, which you guys are at what you do, is, because look, I harp on Daniel all the time, is if I turn a property every year, it's a bad deal for me. Mm-hmm. I have to find tenants that will stay 2, 3, 4, 5 years.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Because if you don't, for me, it's hard to make money, right? I mean, if a tenant comes and goes every year, you got to go in and you got to touch it. I got to pay this, I got to pay that. So, I mean, it takes away a good piece of your profit.
Yeah.
So, for me, and I think you guys make a good point of, hey, look, if I could put the right people in from the get-go, they're going to stay there for 2 or 3 or 4 years.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it's proven on a lot of my units.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. If you
buy a unit that has people in it, even if they've been paying, like this woman had paid.
You got to see the tenant ledger.
Exactly. And then the minute I bought it, she never paid a dime.
That's so frustrating. And I hate to say, I've seen that happen
Happens
like
all the time.
dozens of times.
All the time.
And I just had a deal where I helped a client like put together an off-market connection where it was a property we had been managing for years, and it'd been going well. I mean, we had some tenant turnover, but the current tenants in place, they were in good standing.
Yep.
And we like the sale went fine, new owner takes ownership. He was just in my network, but he had his properties with another property manager. And he was like, he's like, I like you, but I want to put this with my, where I have all my other properties. And I'm like, okay, that's fine. And it kind of goes back to that relationships in real estate kind of bit. Because he's just like, as soon as the other property manager took over, like tenant just both tenants, like just stopped paying, and never paid again. And I feel bad about it, like that happened to this guy. I helped buy him. He had to evict 2 tenants right off the bat. Which also makes me feel like a little bit of a mafia boss. I'm like, you fire us from property management, look what happens.
I get it.
It's like, no, I promise I had nothing to do with that.
It's probably part of the business that is so upsetting to say, why do you think you can now live here for free?
Yeah.
I offered this woman $1,000 to move out.
Yeah.
Like, I'll give you $1,000 cash if you move out today. I'm not leaving.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I don't understand why people do that, but it's the nature of the business. And if you're going to get into it, you got to understand that that's part of it.
Yeah, absolutely.
But if I think, look, we've had people in our, I've got a guy that's been living in one of our units for 5 years. Mm-hmm. And you know what? Again, for us, the issue is like, I think probably for the first 3 years, I never raised his rent. Mm-hmm. And another thing Daniel would always say to me is, you got to raise his rent. Like, what? I always look at a ledger to say, this guy's, if he pays me on time, first of the month, every month.
Yeah.
Never asks me for anything.
Right.
Because look, they're going to get the money one way or another, right? You raise somebody's rent $100, all of a sudden they're going to nickel and dime you to death where it's costing you oh, hey, I need this.
They're going to try to get that $100 back.
Exactly. And this guy just happens to, he fixes everything himself.
Yeah.
Never. I don't think he's ever called one time.
Yeah.
And I raise his rent just a little bit just because. And okay, no problem.
Yeah. And it goes back to that's just one of those things that's I think it's undervalued a lot by because people might hear that and think like, oh, that that's great, that's nice, but I'd rather raise the rent. Sure. But it's like, well, it's because all you're trying to do is pull levers. Yeah. Instead of like realizing like there's a lot of nuance to just because you're receiving the rent. But the tenant is, they're paying late. They're paying, they're somehow paying us using a credit card, or just which we always we tell tenants we'll fine them if they use a credit card because they can always report it as fraudulent later. We've had issues with that, and that there's all these signs, right, that a tenant it might just be a matter of time before you have to evict this tenant. Right. like if those signs aren't there, like that's a very valuable tenant. Like you don't want to lose them.
You just don't find those very easily.
No.
I mean, those people, like we've got a tenant right now that she's like, I'd love to stay here. You take great care, blah, 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 but I'm getting older and I can't go upstairs anymore. I'm like, okay, hey, look, I get that.
Yeah.
But he cuts the grass. He does, I like this guy because it's a duplex and he does everything for the whole property.
Yeah.
I've never been, I go over there all the time, but I don't ever cut the grass. I don't pick anything up.
Yeah.
And I'd let him stay there at the same price forever.
Yeah.
But if you don't want to be going up, I totally get that. That's not something I can solve.
Yeah, how much does a ramp cost?
Yeah, exactly.
But these are the kind of things that like I feel like a savvy investor understands that a newbie investor doesn't, because it's like,
right.
Why should the owner have? Why like it's not my responsibility to pay for a ramp. It's tenant's responsibility.
Right.
It's like, well, it might be in your best interest to like make a deal here with the tenant.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think like this the perfect example of these people. I think they'll probably stay for another year or so, and then they'll get to a certain point. We treat them really well, and they like living there.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to force somebody to stay there, as they get older and don't want to be up, going upstairs. I get that, right? That doesn't bode well for anybody. But I think, look, there's nothing wrong with trying to accommodate that works for both parties, right? Mm-hmm. It's not that big a deal.
Yeah, it's a good way.
But to your point, like
creative.
if you're just going to be moving that lever, then I'm not sure real estate works it doesn't work for everybody.
Yeah, you just got to realize there's somebody on the other side they're under that lever that's getting affected. And if you think that you just need to get everybody to bend so that this thing works the way you want it to, like,
right,
you're just not going to last long.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think the market has turned. Interest rates are not helping younger people buy homes. So you got to get creative on how to do it.
Yeah,
you're going to buy.
Yeah, and I think there's certain things that are helping a lot of different macroeconomic things going on. I know we mentioned that change they made to FHA. I don't know if you followed the portable mortgage stuff.
No.
Because everybody's talking about the 50-year mortgage still,
sure.
And just how that they're trying to. Who knows if that will really become a reality?
Yep.
And it's not going to have. I don't think it's going to. It's not going to actually help the housing market.
It'll help people that live probably in markets like LA.
Right.
I've got friends that live in San Francisco that are 50 plus years old and never owned a home.
Exactly. It could be a slightly better alternative to renting.
Exactly.
In those,
but it's just
markets.
it's a bad alternative in general.
Right.
Even at 30 years, people may never pay off their homes.
Yeah.
Right. It's just like 50. They'll never. No one will ever own a home.
Yeah. How much of the real estate is owned by the banks?
Exactly. A lot.
Yeah, and will be forever, because even though those people will sell the home, there's going to be a note that just gets paid off in that sale, and then a new note is formed.
Yep.
With the new bank.
Right.
Yeah. Everybody's using mortgages to buy houses.
Question.
I think Stuart and I are both in that. We got mortgages on our houses, and I do like that comparison to everybody's. People are freaking out about how bad the 50-year mortgage is, and it is that's a lot of interest you'd be paying. But also, there's lots of video clips from maybe the 80s, when they rolled out the 30-year mortgage, because they only had 10 and 15 before that, and when they rolled out the 30, people were saying the same thing. That is insane that you would.
When you think about it, if you have a 50-year mortgage deal and the market turns like it did in whatever 2009, and all of a sudden, you'll lose. The banks will lose, because that $1 million house in LA now is worth $700, and they'll never have enough equity in it. I did a deal.
That is interesting.
I bought a home in Florida whenever it was 2008 or 2009. And it wasn't very expensive. I think I paid $400,000 for it. It was just a nice little place we'd go to or whatever. And I bought it. The next year, the market tanked. And it was in a brand new community. And I called my real estate agent down there and I said, I think I'll just sell. I'm not there. I'll just sell it, because we had furnished it, the whole 9 yards. And I said, what do you think it's worth? She goes, I'd probably get you 100. I said, 100 what? $100,000. I'm like, what? No, I mean,
Yeah.
and again, I had a
It
mortgage.
almost feels like it might as well be zero.
I had a mortgage on it, and it should have been, right? So I'm like, well, that doesn't make any sense.
Oh yeah.
So I ended up renting it, but that's where, I mean, it was a development. Now, what I want to do was, because the developer still had 10 or 15 homes that were built, and I knew he was going to give them away, right?
Yeah.
So I said, well, if I got a $400,000, I'll go buy one from I'll go buy one for another 100. If I could buy one for 100, I should go buy it.
Right.
It cost average the two, and now I
you
got
bought the
250
dip.
in each. And when I made that approach to my wife, she said, "That's a great idea. If you want to go live in one of them, you're just not going to live here anymore." So I said, "Okay, probably not a good idea." So, but I mean, there were deals. Again, it's all about if you buy. Like I would have loved to own my house down there at $100,000, all day long. It would have been the greatest place in the world.
Well, the math was so different in that 2008 crisis because you had the just a glutted inventory because of people defaulting, but that like people not being able to or defaulting on their mortgages, they still had somewhere they needed to live, so that caused rents
to
raise everywhere. So
Yeah.
it was a lot of savvy investors, and that's where a lot of these like hedge funds we have today that own thousands and thousands. That's when they were born.
Right.
Was like 2010 to 2014 to buying up all this inventory.
But I think if you go with the 50-year mortgage, and you get a downturn, I mean, you're going to be the banks will be underwater.
It's
like
a
no
lot,
tomorrow.
because it's interesting.
You never start paying. I mean, what is it? I mean, on a 50-year mortgage, you don't gain any principal for equity for 10 years.
I mean, it's just
12 years. I mean, but it doesn't
minuscule.
make a difference, right? Especially if you're talking about $1 million.
Yeah, you've maybe built $1,000 in equity by year 3.
Exactly. So if you get a downturn in the market, everybody's in deep, deep trouble.
Yep, it's a lot.
And again, the banks lose. I mean, the banks are the ones that lose.
I think the only thing that could help prevent that is what's the LTV requirement, because like we had one of the lenders I work with a lot, David Powell, we had him in here, and I was asking him tons of questions about, because he has been a lender since 2005, so he saw like from the lender side all of the 2008 stuff, and he told us that, was it 110 or 115%?
Yeah, you could
if it was an owner occupied home, you could pull 115% of your equity.
Yep.
And it was because the bank's rationale was like, hey, you're going to live in there. It's an appreciating asset. It'll keep going up. So they've really moved those goalposts. That's one of the biggest results in banking regulations, is that's where that 75 or 80% LTV came from, was basically to just mitigate the bank's risk. So it would, I think, for people to end up, even if they had a 50-year mortgage, for them to end up upside down, there'd have to be a downturn of more than 10%. Which, but to your point too, like low down payment, that so I guess that's kind of what I would hope on a 50-year mortgage. I hope that it's not available for 5% or less.
It can't be, unfortunately,
because then if there's any sort of downturn, everyone's upside down. Yeah.
And there's nothing worse than being upside down. I mean, I saw it happen, in Naples when I had my place down there. I mean, people were freaking out. I mean, what were they going to do? They couldn't afford to stay. They couldn't afford to sell it, and a lot of them just came back. I mean, I know a guy who was an investor that I had met. I mean, he went crazy. He was buying. I think he owned 10 places between like 06 and 08.
Yeah.
In Naples, and he ended up going bankrupt. I mean, it literally ruined his life. The happiest I ever saw him was when he owned 10 places, and the most upset I ever saw him was when he gave them all back to the bank. Right? I mean, and the guy, he was living a great life, and then all of a sudden, I mean, it was just terrible.
Yeah, just hit the brakes.
And that's why, again, I kind of at my age, I mean, look, I could own 25 places today if I really wanted to, but then I'm at the mercy of the bank. Then I'd have to borrow money to do it.
Yeah.
And I just didn't want to. Now, again, I think, I will change my, if the interest rates change, there's no question that, I'll get back into it. Because again, if you have enough property that you own outright and you buy more, and and again, if you look at it as a portfolio, all that math works.
And I think that's where, again, kind of going back to that, like if you just want to get quick cash out of it, like, and you want to buy one property and just see if you can do that. It's not going to work out. You're going to you're going to be selling that property and you're going to be telling everybody how, your brief stint in real estate investing. You have to kind of have this like mentality of like, I want to grow, because then you get a wheel of cash flow. Then when maintenance things come up, it's like, well, when I have 10 or 15K in rent revenue coming at me every month,
afford to do it.
Then an AC goes out. It's not the end of the world. We'll deal with it, But yeah, it's very hard to do when it's hard to have that perspective.
But there again, I think it goes back to, and this is what I tell, like if you're buying one property and it's 100, it's really 120. Put an extra 10 or 15 grand aside to say, when that goes out, I'm not taking from my personal savings to go pay it.
Yeah.
Right. Because that way, there's no surprises.
Yeah.
And just know I think, we used to use some of the best inspectors and stuff like that. I mean, the guys that, that you have as part of your team, because I knew going into it about how much, it really needs a new roof. It really needs a new, and if you know that going into it, if you decide to fix it or don't fix it, that's your call. But at least you know how much it's going to cost you to get the place to where it should be.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, it's just needs to be kind of held in escrow.
Put it somewhere so that you have it.
Yeah.
Especially if you're young and you don't have a lot of expendable, money. Just make sure you have enough to put aside.
Counting up the costs.
Yeah, I mean
absolutely.
And when stuff breaks, it doesn't usually come just one at a time. I mean, you get multiple.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like this property I talk about is like, I don't understand how I keep having the same, a leak here, a leak there,
Yeah.
It just happens.
Might just be time to run all new PECs.
Yeah, I mean, well, that's what we end up doing on the last one is, we put a bunch of new pipes in and, so that we won't. And a lot of it, we had, like we talked about earlier, I mean, you got to have the right contractors. You got to have the right people looking after your best interest, because if you don't, I mean, I've been down that path many, many times.
Oh, yeah. That world can be a race to the bottom.
Terrible.
Yeah.
Terrible. So you got to have people that you can trust that know how to do the work.
Yeah.
And sometimes those are not the cheapest people to use. I learned my lesson many times by trying to use the cheapest guy I could find.
Yeah.
Never worked. Long term, it never worked out for me.
You guys wrapping everything in duct tape.
Yeah, I mean, it's just it just doesn't work.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you got to figure out what the best way to do it is.
Yeah. Well, David, you're a wealth of knknowledge. We really appreciate you coming in.
No, I was glad to be here. I was glad to be invited. Thank you.
Yeah, I feel like I could go on for another hour. Just
I don't even want to call this a conclusion. I just want to say let's press pause until we can get you back in here, like maybe in a couple months, and keep going, because I feel like I've learned a lot. I know our listeners have too.
Yeah. No, listen. I have a lot of fun doing it. I think again, I'm not to but you guys have been a great partner for us, because again, for me, I don't mind doing a lot of stuff. I just don't want to do everything.
Yeah.
And I want to pick and choose what I do. So I think, I tell everybody, and I think a lot of people think they can do it by themselves, but the reality of it is, it's not easy.
Yeah.
So you got to find the right partner to do it with.
Absolutely.
And that costs money to do it. But at the end of the day, if they ought to be able to find a way to save you some money if they're doing their job right, and they can help you.
Yeah.
So, and that's where I think
100%.
you guys have done a great job. So.
I appreciate you saying that. Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for coming in. You got anything you want to plug or anything?
No, I don't know.
Yeah, you're not trying to grow your social media presence.
I have no social media presence. No, if I can stay under the radar a little bit, it works better for me.
Fair enough. So, yeah, nobody reach out to David.
Yeah, no,
unless you got a property you desperately need to sell.
If you need something you need cash for, call me.
We're just good advice, real estate advice.
Yeah, no, listen.
Absolutely.
I mean, I'm always I get a lot of phone calls from people, and I'm always happy to, give people my experiences, because sometimes I wish I had that when I was doing lots of different things. I got into the restaurant business 20-some years ago. Absolute worst experience I ever had in my life, and nobody was there to say you shouldn't do this.
Right.
So I tell everybody, I educate people on the pros and cons of doing almost anything anymore.
Yeah, somebody who's been there before.
Yeah, and especially if you've lost money doing it.
Oh yeah,
there's a lot of good stories there. So.
100%. Yeah,
well,
too many stories of people just saying, "Here's all this money I made." I want to hear the stories of how, who's lost money.
Our next episode, if you want to talk about something outside of real estate, I can tell you those stories, because that's why I got into the restaurant business. I had all sorts of guys making just stupid money.
Yeah,
and I never made a dime. so there's it happens.
I love it.
Yeah,
I love it.
Well, thank you.
Cool.
Appreciate it.
Thanks for coming in.
All right.
Thanks for coming
Anytime.
in. If you enjoyed the episode, please leave us a 5-star review on Spotify and like the episode and subscribe to our channel on YouTube. That really helps us out.
If you think someone that you know could benefit from hearing the things that we talked about on today's episode, please share it with them.
You can check out our full library of episodes wherever you get your podcasts. And if you have any suggestions for the show, like who we should interview or a topic we should discuss, please email us at circleinvestorpod@gmail.com.
That's it for today, but join us right back here next week for another episode of the Circle Investor Podcast.